Tae-Sung Kim stood in the underground facility, staring at the screen that showed patterns nobody else could see. The lights in the control room flickered softly as computers worked day and night, listening to the stars. For 3 months now, his team had picked up strange signals from deep space. They were not natural. They were not random. They were organized, purposeful, and getting closer. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the coffee cup on his desk. It had gone cold hours ago. Around him, scientists and military officers moved quietly, checking data and comparing notes. Everyone felt the weight of what they had discovered, but nobody wanted to say it out loud, yet Ji-woo Park walked into the room carrying a tablet. She was one of the smartest people Tae-Sung had ever met. Her team had been analyzing the signals for weeks, breaking them down into smaller pieces, trying to understand what they meant. "Commander," she said quietly, "you need to see this." Tae-Sung followed her to a private office. She closed the door and showed him the tablet. On the screen were patterns, mathematical sequences, and something that looked like star maps. "These are not just signals," Moo said. "These are communications. Someone is talking to someone else, and they are getting closer to our solar system." Tae-Sung felt his stomach tighten. "How close?" "Based on the signal strength and direction changes, I think they could be here in 10 to 15 years. Maybe less." The room felt colder. Tae-Sung sat down heavily in a chair. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he looked up at Ji-Woo. "Are you certain?" "As certain as I can be without meeting them face to face." Tae-Sung stood up and walked to the window. Outside was just rock and earth. This facility was buried 300 meters below the surface, hidden from the world. Only a few dozen people knew it existed. "We need to tell the world leaders," he said. "All of them." 3 weeks later, representatives from every major nation gathered in a secret location. No press knew about the meeting. No public announcements were made. In a large room with no windows, Tae-Sung presented the evidence. He showed them the signals, the analysis, and the conclusion his team had reached. At first, nobody believed him. Some laughed. Others got angry. But Ji-Woo presented more data, and slowly the laughter stopped. The anger turned to fear. An American general spoke first. "If what you are saying is true, we need weapons. Big weapons." A Chinese diplomat shook her head. "Weapons will not be enough if they can travel between stars. We need defenses. We need technology we do not have yet." A Russian scientist stood up. "We need time. Time to prepare. Time to build. Time to learn." That was when Tae-Sung presented his plan. He had been working on it for weeks, barely sleeping, trying to think of everything at once. "We create a secret defense initiative," he said. "Every nation contributes. Money, scientists, engineers, soldiers. We pool everything together. We build in secret. We prepare for the day they arrive, and if they never come?" someone asked. "Then we will have wasted resources," Tae-Sung replied. "But if they do come and we are not ready, we will have wasted our entire species." The room fell silent. Then, one by one, the leaders agreed. Humanity would prepare for war in secret. The project started immediately. Money was redirected from dozens of programs. Scientists were recruited from universities and research centers, told they were working on classified projects. Nobody knew the full picture except a small group at the top. Ai-Jin Lee was brought in to train soldiers. She was a captain in the Special Forces, known for thinking differently than other officers. When Tae-Sung told her the truth about why she was being recruited, she did not laugh or question him. She simply asked, "What do you need me to do?" "Train soldiers to fight enemies we have never seen," Tae-Sung said. "Teach them to fight in places we have never been. Make them ready for anything." Hai-Jin built training facilities in remote locations. Mountains, deserts, underwater bases. She pushed soldiers harder than they had ever been pushed. Many quit. The ones who stayed became something new, something harder. They learned to fight in zero gravity using specially built aircraft. They learned to think like aliens might think. They practiced against computer simulations that Jiwoo's team created based on what little they knew. Meanwhile, Donghai and Choi worked in massive underground factories. He was an engineer who had designed weapon systems for the military. Now he had unlimited funding and one goal: build weapons that could fight enemies with unknown technology. "We cannot match what we do not understand," he told his team. "So we build everything. Lasers, railguns, plasma weapons, particle beams. We try every idea, no matter how crazy it sounds." His factories ran day and night. Prototypes were built, tested, and rebuilt. Most failed. Some worked. The ones that worked were improved and mass-produced in secret. Above Earth's orbit, construction began on defense platforms. They were built slowly, piece by piece, disguised as research stations and satellites. Nobody watching from Earth suspected they were actually weapons platforms with enough firepower to destroy small moons. Behind the moon, shipyards were constructed. Using materials mined from asteroids, humanity built its first real warships. They were not like anything shown in movies. They were practical, efficient, and deadly. Each ship carried weapons, shields, and engines designed to fight in the vacuum of space. The work continued for years. 5 years passed, then 10. Children grew up not knowing their parents were building defenses to save humanity. Scientists made breakthroughs they could not publish. Soldiers trained for battles they could not discuss. Tae-sung grew older. Gray appeared in his hair. Lines formed on his face. But he never stopped working. Every day he woke up thinking about the signals, about the unknown enemy coming toward Earth. Jiwoo's team continued monitoring space. The signals grew stronger. The enemy was coming exactly as predicted. But now humanity had secrets of its own. Behind the moon sat 30 warships. In orbit around Earth floated 60 defense platforms. Underground bunkers housed weapons that could level cities. Millions of soldiers had trained for this day. On the 15th anniversary of the first signal detection, Tae-sung stood in the same control room where it all began. Jiwoo stood beside him, older now but still sharp. "They will be here soon," she said softly. "Maybe weeks. Maybe days." Tae-sung nodded. "Are we ready?" Jiwoo smiled slightly. "They think they are invading a primitive world. They have no idea what is waiting for them." Around the world, military forces quietly moved into position. Civilians noticed increased activity but were told it was just exercises. The truth remained hidden. Humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed, but not to itself. It would be revealed to the invaders. In orbit, crews boarded the warships. In underground bases, soldiers checked their weapons. In command centers buried deep below ground, officers watched screens and waited. The invaders were coming. But the soldiers of Earth were already waiting. The sky above Earth tore open like fabric ripping apart. Hundreds of ships emerged from the impossible wound in space, their hulls dark and massive against the stars. They came all at once, filling the orbit with metal and power. On Earth below, people looked up and screamed. Some ran, some prayed. Some simply stood and watched the end of their world arrive. Inside the lead alien vessel, the fleet commander stood before a viewing screen. He had conquered 17 worlds before this one. Earth would be number 18. His species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years, while these humans still fought each other over dirt and water. "Send the message," he ordered, across every television. Radio and computer screen on Earth, the same message appeared. It showed the alien commander, tall and covered in armored scales, his eyes cold and ancient. "Humans of Earth," the message said. "You are surrounded. You cannot run. You cannot hide. Surrender your world or we will take it. You have 1 hour to decide." In the secret command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Sung Ho Nam watched the broadcast with calm eyes. He was an admiral now, though few people knew what he commanded. He stood in a room full of screens and officers, all waiting for his order. "Status of the fleet?" he asked quietly. A young officer checked her display. "All ships report ready, Admiral. Crews are at battle stations. Weapons are charged. We are still behind the moon, hidden from their sensors. And the orbital platforms? Also ready, sir. They think those are just old satellites and research stations. Seung-ho allowed himself a small smile. The aliens had arrived exactly as predicted. They had positioned themselves in high orbit, confident and arrogant. They had scanned Earth with their sensors, and found exactly what they expected to find, a primitive world with primitive defenses, some nuclear weapons, chemical rockets, and simple satellites. They had no idea they were looking at decoys and disguises. Open a channel to all Earth forces, Seung-ho said. Send the activation codes? The officer's fingers moved across her console. Channel open, sir. Seung-ho took a deep breath. For 15 years he had prepared for this moment. 15 years of building ships, training crews, and planning for the day the invaders arrived. Now that day was here. This is Admiral Seung-ho Nam to all Earth Defense Forces, he said clearly. Execute Operation Thunder. Show them what we have built. Across Earth and its orbit, systems came alive. On the moon's dark side, massive engines ignited. The 30 warships that had been hidden in the moon's shadow moved forward. Their hulls were painted black to blend with space, but now lights blazed across their surfaces. Weapons ports opened. Shield systems activated. The warships emerged from behind the moon like sharks rising from deep water. In the alien fleet, alarms began screaming. Sensors that had shown empty space suddenly filled with contacts. 30 massive ships appeared where nothing should exist. The alien commander stared at his displays in shock. What is this? He demanded. Where did they come from? His sensor officer was panicking. I do not know, Commander. They were not there a moment ago. Our scans showed nothing. Scan them now. The sensors analyzed the human warships. The results made no sense. These ships had technology that should not exist on a primitive world. They had energy shields. They had weapons that read as advanced as anything the aliens possessed. This is impossible, the alien commander whispered. Bora Shin sat in the cockpit of her fighter, waiting behind an asteroid 3,000 kilometers from the alien fleet. Around her, 150 other fighters waited in the darkness, engines cold and silent. They had been launched from hidden bases in the asteroid belt days ago, positioning themselves along the enemy's approach route. All units, this is flight control, a voice said in her helmet. You are cleared to engage. Light them up. Bora smiled and pushed her throttles forward. Her fighter came alive, engine burning bright. Around her, 150 other engines ignited. The fighter squadron accelerated toward the alien fleet like arrows shot from bows. The aliens detected them immediately, but by then it was too late. The fighters were small, fast, and armed with missiles designed specifically to pierce alien armor. Bora selected her first target, a heavy cruiser on the fleet's edge. She locked her missiles and fired. 2 missiles streaked across space, trailing fire. They hit the alien ship's shields, and the shields collapsed. The missiles punched through armor and exploded inside the hull. The cruiser shuddered and began venting atmosphere. Target hit, Bora shouted. Shields are weak. They are weak. All around the alien fleet, human fighters attacked. Missiles and energy weapons struck from a dozen directions. The aliens tried to respond, but they were confused and slow. They had expected to fight primitive rockets and maybe some brave pilots in atmospheric craft. Instead, they faced coordinated squadrons with weapons that hurt on Earth's surface. Min Seo Kang stood in a military command center, watching the battle on screens above her. She was a colonel in the ground forces, and her job was about to begin. The aliens would send dropships soon. They always did. When orbital control failed, invaders tried to land ground forces. Status on anti-orbital batteries? She asked her team. All batteries are charged and ready, an officer reported. We have coverage over every major city and military installation. Good. The moment they launch dropships, I want those batteries firing. Do not let them reach the ground easily. Young Sik-hen worked at his console in the communications center, his fingers moving quickly across controls. He was a technician, not a soldier, but his job was just as important. He managed the communication networks that kept all Earth forces connected. Without him and his team, the warships could not talk to the fighters, and the fighters could not talk to ground forces. "Admiral Nam, this is communications," young Sikh said into his headset. "All networks are operating normally. We have full coverage across all battle zones." "Good work," Sung Ho's voice replied. "Keep those channels open. We need coordination." In space, the battle continued. The human warships moved forward, firing their weapons. Bright beams of energy crossed the darkness. Railguns launched metal slugs at incredible speeds. Missiles spiraled and twisted, seeking targets. The alien fleet tried to fight back. They had more ships and bigger weapons, but they were disorganized and shocked. Half their commanders were still trying to understand what was happening. The other half were shouting conflicting orders. One alien battleship fired its main weapon at a human cruiser. The beam struck the cruiser's shields, and the shields held. The cruiser returned fire with its railguns. 3 slugs hit the battleship's hull, tearing through armor that was supposed to be impenetrable. Sung Ho watched from his command center as the battle developed. It was going well, better than he had dared hope. The aliens were tough, but they were not prepared. Humanity had the advantage of surprise, preparation, and pure determination. "All ships, focus fire on their command vessels," he ordered. "If we cut off their leadership, the rest will fall apart." The human warships changed their targeting priorities. They concentrated their fire on the largest alien ships, the ones radiating the most powerful signals. Shields collapsed under combined assault. Hulls cracked and broke. On the alien flagship, the commander finally accepted reality. His easy conquest had become a real battle. These humans had been waiting. They had prepared. They had built weapons and ships in secret while his scouts had reported them as primitive and divided. "All ships combat formation," he ordered. "Return fire. These primitives dare challenge us. Show them the power of the Empire." The alien fleet began to organize. Their discipline and training started to overcome the initial shock. They formed battle lines and began fighting back with their full strength. Space filled with weapons fire from both sides. A human destroyer took a direct hit and exploded. 2 frigates collided while evading enemy fire. Laura's squadron lost 6 fighters to alien point defense systems, but for every human ship lost, 2 alien vessels fell. The humans fought with desperate courage. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. This was their home, their world, their families below on Earth's surface. Sung Ho watched as the battle reached its climax. Both fleets were damaged, bleeding, but still fighting. Then he gave his next order. "Activate the orbital platforms. All 60. Fire on my command." Around Earth, 60 satellites suddenly changed. Panels dropped away, revealing weapon arrays. The disguised research stations and old satellite hulks transformed into weapons platforms. They had been there for years, hidden in plain sight, waiting. "Fire," Sung Ho said. 60 platforms fired at once. Energy beams and missiles streaked upward from Earth orbit, hitting the alien fleet from below. The aliens had been watching the human warships approaching from the moon. They had not expected an attack from Earth itself. 10 alien ships died in the first salvo. 20 more were damaged. The alien commander stared at his displays in horror. The battle was turning into a disaster. He had lost a quarter of his fleet, and the humans were still fighting hard. "Pull back," he ordered. "All ships retreat to high orbit. We need to regroup." The alien fleet began to withdraw, burning their engines hard to escape the battle zone. The human warships did not pursue. They held their position, protecting Earth. On the planet below, people watched the sky through telescopes and cameras. The alien dropships came down like meteors, burning through Earth's atmosphere with fury and desperation. The fleet commander had decided that if he could not control space, he would take the ground. Thousands of dropships launched from the retreating fleet, heading toward major cities across the planet. J1U stood on a rooftop in Seoul, watching the sky turn orange with re-entry burns. He was a sergeant in the Earth Defense Forces, commanding a squad of 12 soldiers. Around him, his team checked their weapons and equipment. They had trained for 5 years, but this was their first real battle. "Here they come," said one of his soldiers, a young man named Taemin. His voice shook slightly. "Steady," J1 said calmly. "Remember your training. They are tough, but they bleed just like anything else." Across the city, anti-orbital batteries opened fire. Bright beams of energy lanced upward, striking dropships. Some exploded in mid-air, turned to fireballs by Earth's defenses. But there were too many. For every ship destroyed, 3 more made it through. The first dropship crashed into a building 6 blocks from J1's position. The impact shook the ground like an earthquake. A moment later, the dropship's doors opened and aliens poured out. They were big, bigger than humans, covered in natural armor that looked like gray stone. They carried weapons that hummed with power. They moved quickly, spreading out through the streets with military precision. "All units, engage at will," Minasio's voice came through the radio. She was coordinating the defense from a command bunker beneath the city. "Make them fight for every meter." J1's squad moved down from the rooftop using stairs they had prepared in advance. They had spent weeks preparing this neighborhood, placing supplies, mapping routes, and creating defensive positions. Every building was a potential fortress. Every alley was a trap. The aliens advanced down the main street, moving in formation. They expected resistance, but thought it would be light and poorly organized. Instead, the street exploded with gunfire from a dozen different positions. J1 fired his rifle from a third-floor window. The bullet struck an alien's chest armor and bounced off. The alien did not even slow down. J1 cursed and switched to the heavy weapon his team had prepared. It was a railgun, one of Dong Hyan's designs, small enough to be carried by 2 soldiers. "Hit them with the rail," he ordered Tae-min, and another soldier aimed the railgun and fired. The weapon made a sound like thunder. A metal slug traveling at incredible speed struck the alien in the center of mass. This time the armor cracked and the alien fell. "Their armor is strong, but not perfect," J1 shouted into his radio. "Concentrate fire. Use the heavy weapons." Throughout Seoul, soldiers learned quickly. Standard rifles did not work well against alien armor. But railguns, plasma weapons, and explosive rounds were effective. The aliens were tough, but they were not invincible. Subin Choi ran through the streets carrying a medical bag. She was a field doctor assigned to J1's unit. Behind her, 2 soldiers carried a wounded man on a stretcher. An alien plasma blast had burned his leg badly. "Get him to the aid station," she shouted. "I need to get back to the front." The soldiers ran toward a nearby building that had been converted to a medical facility. Subin turned and ran back toward the fighting. She could hear the sounds of battle growing louder. Explosions, gunfire, screams. She found 3 wounded soldiers in an alley, pinned down by alien fire. Subin crawled to them, staying low. One man had been hit in the shoulder. Another had taken shrapnel to his leg. The third was unconscious with a head wound. "You are going to be okay," she told them, working quickly. She injected pain medication, applied bandages, and sealed wounds with medical foam. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, never shaking despite the danger. An alien turned the corner into the alley. It saw Subin and the wounded soldiers and raised its weapon. Before it could fire, bullets struck it from the side. Kyung-Soo Park emerged from a doorway, his rifle smoking. "Get them out of here, doctor," he said. "I will cover you." Kyung-Soo was a combat engineer. His job was building defenses and traps. He had spent the last 2 days rigging this section of the city with surprises for the invaders. Subin helped the wounded soldiers to safety while Kyung-Soo covered their retreat. Once they were clear, he pressed a button on a remote detonator. Down the street, explosives hidden in a building foundation detonated. The building collapsed, blocking the road and crushing several aliens beneath the rubble. "That will slow them down," Kyung-Soo muttered. He ran to his next prepared position. Yeon-hee Lim crouched behind a concrete barrier, her hands shaking as she held her rifle. She was 19 years old and had been in the defense forces for only 6 months. All her training had not prepared her for the reality of aliens trying to kill her. An alien appeared around the corner, its weapon raised. Yun-hee froze. Her finger would not pull the trigger. Fear locked her muscles. The alien aimed at her. Then J1 appeared, tackling the alien from the side. They fell together, wrestling. The alien was stronger, but J1 was faster. He pulled a combat knife and drove it into a gap in the alien's armor at the neck. Dark blood sprayed. The alien stopped moving. J-1 stood up, breathing hard. He looked at Yun-hee. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak. "Fear is normal," he said. "But you cannot let it control you. Your squad depends on you. I depend on you. Can you fight?" Yun-hee looked at her sergeant, at the alien corpse, at the city burning around them. Something hardened inside her. She stood up and nodded. "Yes, Sergeant. I can fight." For the next hour, she fought alongside her unit. When aliens attacked, she fired her weapon. When her squad needed ammunition, she brought it. When Taemin was wounded, she dragged him to cover while under fire. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her. The battle for Seoul raged for 3 days. The aliens captured some districts but lost others. They found that every street was a battle. Every building had defenders. The humans used tactics the aliens had never seen before. They struck and retreated. They used the terrain. They refused to fight in the open where the aliens' superior strength mattered most. In other cities around the world, similar battles occurred. The aliens landed in New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, and dozens of other places. Everywhere they went, they found prepared defenses and determined soldiers. The alien ground commander walked through the ruins of what had been a human shopping center. Around him, his soldiers searched for enemies. They had taken this position after 6 hours of fighting. 50 of his soldiers had died taking this one building. "This is not what we were told," he said to his second in command. "Intelligence said these humans were divided and primitive. They said this would be easy." "Intelligence was wrong," his second replied. "These humans have been preparing for us. Look at their equipment. Look at their tactics. This was planned long before we arrived." The ground commander knew his second was right. The humans had been waiting. Their defenses were too organized, their weapons too advanced, their soldiers too well trained. This was not a primitive world caught by surprise. This was a prepared enemy fighting for survival. "What are our losses?" he asked. 30% casualties across all ground forces, his second said quietly. "Worse in some areas. The humans are using their cities as weapons against us. Every building is a fortress. Every street is a killing zone." The commander looked up at the sky. He could see the flashes of continued fighting in orbit. His fleet was not winning up there either. The humans had surprised them everywhere, on the ground and in space. "Send a message to the fleet commander," he said. "Tell him ground operations are not proceeding as planned. Tell him we need reinforcements or we need to withdraw." That night in a bunker beneath Seoul, J1 squad rested. They had been fighting for 72 hours with only short breaks. Taemin's wound was treated and he would recover. Yun-hee sat cleaning her rifle, her hands steady now. Subin moved among them, checking for injuries and exhaustion. "How many do you think we killed?" Taemin asked quietly. "Does not matter," J1 said. "What matters is we are still here. Still fighting. They came to take our world, but we are not giving it to them." Kyung-soo looked at a map on his tablet. "We have collapsed 12 buildings on them, blown up 34 street intersections, and forced them into kill zones 47 times. They are learning to avoid our traps, but slowly. We are teaching them that Earth is not easy prey." Menesio's voice came over the radio. "All units, listen up. Intelligence reports the aliens are considering withdrawal from some positions. Keep up the pressure. Make them regret ever coming here." Around the bunker, soldiers checked their weapons and prepared to go back out. They were tired, scared, and hurting. But they were also winning. The mighty alien empire had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they had found humans who refused to surrender, who fought with intelligence and courage, who turned their own cities into weapons. In orbit above, Sung Ho watched the reports from ground forces. Casualties were high, but they were holding. The aliens were not advancing. Some were even retreating from positions they had taken. They thought we would be easy, he said to his staff. They were wrong. Now they know? Earth defends itself. Jihu Sao stood in the intelligence center, staring at the alien communication device on the table before him. His team had captured it 3 days ago when a group of soldiers overwhelmed an alien command post. The device was still active, receiving and sending signals to the alien fleet. Can we crack it? Asked General Taesung, who had flown in personally to see the captured technology. We already have, Jihu said with a slight smile. It took us 48 hours, but we broke their encryption. We can read everything they are sending. Taesung leaned forward. What are they saying? Jihu pulled up a screen showing translated messages. They are confused and arguing. Ground commanders are requesting reinforcements. The fleet commander is refusing because he has lost too many ships. Their supply lines are stretched thin. And most importantly, their morale is breaking. Morale? Taesung raised an eyebrow. They have morale problems? They have never fought an enemy like us before, Jihu explained. Every world they conquered before was either primitive or surrendered quickly. They expected the same here. Instead, they are losing soldiers daily, their ships are damaged, and they have gained almost nothing. Their troops are starting to question if this conquest is worth the cost. Taesung thought for a moment. Can we do more than just read their messages? Can we send our own? Jihu smiled wider. I was hoping you would ask that. Meet Da-Yoon Kim. She is our cyber warfare specialist. A young woman with sharp eyes stepped forward. She carried a laptop covered in security stickers. Give me 6 hours and I can be inside their network completely, she said. I can read their messages, send false orders, and make them see whatever we want them to see. Do it, Taesung ordered. Make them think they are losing worse than they actually are. Make them afraid. Da-Yoon worked through the night, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She was one of the best hackers in the world, recruited into the defense forces 5 years ago. Now she was fighting a war with code instead of bullets. She found weaknesses in the alien systems. Their technology was advanced, but their security was overconfident. They never expected a primitive species to break their encryption. Da-Yoon slipped into their network like a ghost. First, she read their real casualty reports. The aliens had lost 40% of their ground forces and 35% of their fleet. Many ships were damaged and running low on supplies. They were far from home with no reinforcements coming. Then she began changing things. She altered the casualty reports to make them worse. She sent false messages from ground commanders begging for evacuation. She made it seem like Earth forces were much larger than they actually were. The alien fleet commander received a message that appeared to come from one of his ground commanders. It reported that human forces had overrun 3 landing zones and were preparing a major counteroffensive. The commander immediately ordered all ground forces to retreat to defensive positions. This order reached J1's radio in Seoul, the aliens who had been attacking. His position suddenly stopped and began pulling back. J1 and his squad watched in surprise as the aliens retreated down the street. Are they leaving? Taemin asked in disbelief. Does not matter why, J1 said. Hit them while they retreat. Do not let them pull back easily. Human forces across Seoul and other cities pressed their attacks. The retreating aliens took heavy casualties. What should have been an organized withdrawal became a chaotic retreat. Under the Pacific Ocean, Woo Jin Lee commanded a submarine fleet that few people knew existed. His submarines were not like traditional ones. They had been built with alien technology in mind, designed to be silent and deadly for days. His fleet had been hunting alien underwater bases. The aliens had tried to set up supply stations on the ocean floor, thinking humans could not reach them there. They were wrong. Target acquired, his sonar officer reported. Alien supply base, depth 2,000 meters. 3 supply ships docked. Load plasma torpedoes, Wu Jin ordered. Fire on my mark. The submarine's tubes opened and released 6 torpedoes. They swam through the dark water, their engines nearly silent. The alien base never detected them until it was too late. The torpedoes struck, and underwater explosions lit up the ocean floor. The supply base and all 3 ships were destroyed. Another one gone, Wu Jin said with satisfaction. Find the next target. His fleet of 12 submarines hunted across the world's oceans. They destroyed supply bases, ambushed transport ships, and made the oceans a death trap for the invaders. The aliens began to realize that humans controlled the seas as well as the land dot in the sky above Earth's atmosphere. Sang-Hoon Park prepared for his most dangerous mission yet. He was a test pilot, chosen to fly humanity's newest weapon, a fighter that combined human and captured alien technology into something better than either. The fighter was sleek and fast, with engines that could accelerate faster than anything the aliens had. Its weapons were a mix of human railguns and alien energy cannons. Its shields were stronger than regular human ships. Eagle 1, you are cleared for launch, said the control officer. Understood. Eagle 1 launching, Sang-Hoon replied. His fighter shot out of the hidden base on the moon, accelerating to incredible speed. He headed straight for the alien fleet's position in high orbit. The aliens detected him immediately. They sent 6 fighters to intercept this single human craft. They expected an easy kill. Instead, Sang-Hoon tore through them like they were standing still. His fighter moved faster, turned tighter, and hit harder than the alien craft. In 3 minutes, all 6 alien fighters were destroyed. Sang-Hoon barely had a scratch on his shields. Control, this is Eagle 1, he reported. New fighter performs beyond expectations. Alien fighters cannot match it. Requesting permission to engage larger targets. Permission granted, Eagle 1. Show them what we have built. Sang-Hoon smiled inside his helmet and turned toward an alien cruiser. He accelerated to attack speed, dodging defensive fire easily. His weapons struck the cruiser's shields repeatedly, and the shields failed. His railguns punched holes in the armor. The cruiser began to drift, crippled, aboard the alien flagship. The fleet commander watched in horror as a single human fighter destroyed 6 of his best pilots and crippled a cruiser. This primitive species had built something that surpassed his own technology. How is this possible? He demanded. They were supposed to be centuries behind us. His chief scientist shook his head. They took our technology and improved it. They combined it with their own ideas in ways we never considered. These humans are not just warriors. They are innovators. The fleet commander looked at his displays. His fleet was damaged and scattered. His ground forces were pinned down or retreating. His supply lines were being destroyed. And now humans had fighters that were better than his own. For the first time in his long military career, he considered the possibility of defeat on Earth. In the underground command center, Taesung watched all the pieces come together. Daeyoon's cyber warfare was causing chaos in alien communications. Woojin's submarines were destroying their supply bases. Sang-Hoon's new fighter proved humans could match and exceed alien technology. And on the ground, human soldiers were pushing the invaders back street by street. Prepare for Operation Thunderstrike, he ordered. Coordinate all forces. We are going to hit them with everything at once. The operation began at dawn. Human warships that had been holding defensive positions suddenly attacked, moving forward in formation. The Ogoto platforms fired continuously at alien vessels. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bases and swarmed the enemy fleet. On the ground, human forces counterattacked simultaneously across the globe. In Seoul, J-1 led his squad in an assault on an alien strongpoint. In New York, other soldiers did the same. Everywhere, the aliens found themselves under attack from forces they thought were broken and defensive. The alien fleet commander received reports from every front. Every report was bad. His ships were being destroyed. His ground forces were collapsing. His supplies were gone. And he was out of options. We must withdraw, his second-in-command said quietly. If we stay, we will lose everything. The commander knew it was true, but admitting defeat hurt worse than any wound. His empire had never failed to conquer a world before. Never. And now these humans, these primitives who should have been easy victims, had defeated his entire fleet. "Send the recall order," he said finally, his voice heavy. "All forces retreat. We are leaving this world." As the alien ships began to power up their engines to leave, some alien soldiers on the ground realized they could not reach the evacuation points in time. They were too far behind enemy lines, too cut off by human forces. A group of 30 alien soldiers in Seoul found themselves surrounded. They had no way to escape. Their dropship had been destroyed. J1's forces had them trapped in a ruined building. The alien squad leader made a decision that shocked his own troops. He came out of the building with his hands raised, his weapon placed on the ground. Behind him, 29 other aliens did the same. They surrendered. It was the first time in the alien empire's 1,000-year history that their soldiers had surrendered to an enemy. The news spread through both alien and human forces like lightning. In orbit, the alien fleet retreated, burning their engines hard to escape Earth's defense forces. The human warships did not pursue far. 6 months had passed since the last alien ship fled from Earth's orbit. The world had changed in ways nobody could have imagined before the invasion. Cities were being rebuilt, soldiers were returning home, and humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Taesung stood at the front of the United Earth Assembly, a new governing body created after the invasion. Representatives from every nation sat before him. The secret was finally out. Everyone now knew that Earth had been preparing for 15 years, that hidden forces had been built, that humanity had been saved by people working in the shadows. "We stand here today not as separate nations," Taesung began, "but as one species that survived its greatest test." The invaders came with ships and weapons, expecting to find a weak and divided world. Instead, they found us ready, united, and unwilling to surrender. The assembly hall was silent as he spoke. On the screens around the room, images showed the battles that had been fought. Ships destroyed in orbit, cities defended street by street, soldiers standing against an empire that had conquered 17 worlds. "We won because we prepared," Taesung continued. "Because scientists like Ji Woo discovered the threat before it arrived. Because engineers like Dong Hyen built weapons to defend us. Because soldiers like Haijin trained warriors who would not break. Because admirals like Sung Ho commanded fleets that protected our skies. And because millions of men and women chose to fight rather than kneel." He paused and looked across the assembly. "But our work is not finished. The aliens will return to their empire. They will tell their leaders about us. We must be ready for what comes next." In a laboratory deep underground, Ji Woo examined pieces of captured alien technology. Computers, weapons, engines, all spread across tables for study. Her team had been working non-stop for 6 months, learning everything they could from what the aliens left behind. "This is incredible," said one of her researchers, a young scientist named Haeun Woo. He held up a piece of alien engine. "Their power systems are 50 years ahead of what we had. But now that we understand the principles, we can replicate it. Maybe even improve it." Woo nodded. "That is exactly what we will do. We take their technology, learn from it, and make it better. We make it human." Around the world, similar research was happening. Human scientists were not just copying alien technology. They were understanding it and then improving upon it. Humanity had always been good at taking ideas and making them better. Now they had alien ideas to work with. The first human deep space vessel was being constructed in orbit. It was called the Unity, and it represented everything humanity had learned from the invasion. The ship combined human innovation with alien technology, creating something neither species had built before. Sung Ho would command it. His mission was to travel to the alien empire's capital and deliver a message. Not a message of surrender or peace, but a message of strength. In her office at the diplomatic corps, Hae-won-young prepared for her new role. Before the invasion, she had been a translator at the United Nations. Now she was humanity's first ambassador to alien civilizations. Are you nervous? Asked her assistant, a young woman named Yi Kyung. Terrified, Haewon admitted. I'm supposed to speak for all of humanity to an empire that spans dozens of worlds. How do you prepare for that? Mi Kyung smiled. You remember that we beat them? They attacked us and we won. You negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. Haewon considered this. It was true. The alien empire had learned that humans were not easy prey. Now she had to make sure they understood what that meant for the future. In Seoul, Jae-won walked through the rebuilt streets with his squad. They had been given medals and recognition, but what mattered most to them was that their city stood. Buildings were rising where ruins had been. People were returning to their homes. Life was continuing. Sergeant Jae-won? A voice called. He turned to see a group of children running toward him. They had drawn pictures of soldiers and spaceships. Can you sign these for us? Jae-won smiled and knelt down to their level. He signed each picture carefully. These children had lived through the invasion. They had seen their world under attack. But they had also seen it defended. Are the aliens coming back? One little girl asked. Maybe someday, Jae-won answered honestly. But if they do, we will be ready. We will always protect you. Yeon-hee stood nearby, watching the interaction. She had changed since the invasion. The scared young soldier who had frozen in combat was gone. In her place was someone confident and strong. She had proven to herself that she could face fear and fight anyway. What will you do now? Taemin asked her. His wound had healed well, leaving only a small scar. I am staying in the defense forces, Yeon-hee said. Earth will need soldiers for a long time. I want to be one of them. Kyung-soo joined them, carrying a tablet showing construction plans. They want me to help design the new orbital stations. Better defenses, better weapons, better everything. And you, Sarge? Taemin asked Jae-won. What is next for you? Jae-won looked up at the sky. I have been asked to join the training program for deep space operations. They are preparing crews to serve on ships like the Unity. You are going to space? Yeon-hee asked with excitement, maybe if I qualify. He smiled. The war taught us that Earth is just one world in a big universe. Now we need to be ready to defend ourselves anywhere, not just here at home. In a medical facility, Subin worked with alien prisoners of war. The 30 aliens who had surrendered in Seoul were being treated well, despite everything. She had learned their biology, how to treat their wounds. How to keep them healthy, one of the aliens. A soldier named in their language something that translated roughly to Stonewalker, spoke to her in broken English he had been learning. Why you help us? He asked. We came to conquer your world. Subin checked his bandages as she answered. Because you surrendered. Because the war is over. Because showing mercy to defeated enemies is what makes us human. Stonewalker considered this. In his empire, defeated enemies were usually killed or enslaved. The concept of prisoners being treated with dignity was foreign to him. But he was learning that humans were different in many ways. Your species is strange, he said finally, but strong. My people made mistake attacking you. Yes, Subin agreed simply. They did. So young Choi traveled the world collecting stories. She was a historian assigned to document everything that happened during the invasion. She interviewed soldiers, scientists, engineers, and civilians. She visited battlefields and command centers. She recorded everything while memories were still fresh. Future generations need to know what happened, she explained to Hae-jin during an interview. They need to know how close we came to losing. They need to know the sacrifices that were made. Hae-jin nodded. Many good people died defending Earth. Their names should be remembered. They will be, So Young promised. Every single one. Monuments were being built in cities worldwide. Walls with names carved into them. Names of soldiers who had fallen. Names of scientists who had died in secret research accidents. Names of engineers who had been killed building defenses. Thousands of names. Thousands of people who had given everything to save humanity, 8 months after the invasion ended, the Unity completed construction. It was a massive ship, 2 kilometers long, carrying a crew of 500. It had weapons, shields, and engines that combined the best of human and alien technology. Sung-ho stood on the bridge, watching Earth through the viewing screen. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations, preparing for departure. "All systems ready." "Admiral," reported his executive officer. "A commander named Beora. Set course for the alien homeworld," Sung-ho ordered. "Maximum speed." The Unity's engines ignited with power that would have been impossible a year ago. The ship accelerated away from Earth, moving faster than any human vessel had ever moved before. It would take 6 months to reach the alien empire, but they would get there. Aboard the ship, Haewon reviewed her speech. When they arrived at the alien capital, she would speak directly to their emperor. She would deliver humanity's message. The alien empire's capital world was called Korras. It had been the center of their civilization for 3,000 years. They had conquered 17 worlds and ruled over dozens of species. They were powerful, ancient, and confident. Then the Unity arrived. The ship came out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Korras system. Immediately, alien defense forces detected it and moved to intercept. A fleet of 100 warships surrounded the Unity, weapons charged and ready. Sung-ho opened a communication channel. "This is Admiral Sung-ho Nam of Earth. We come to speak with your emperor. We come in peace, but we are prepared to defend ourselves if attacked." The alien fleet commander recognized the ship's design. It was built with technology from his own species, but improved and enhanced. The humans had taken what they captured and made it better. "You are bold to come here," the alien commander replied. "We are survivors," Sung-ho said. "Your fleet came to conquer Earth. We destroyed it. Now we are here to ensure you understand what that means." The alien fleet escorted the Unity to Korras, but they did not attack. The Emperor had ordered that these humans be brought before him. He wanted to see for himself the species that had defeated his invasion force. In the Imperial Palace, a structure that had stood for millennia,